Hello, everybody. Coming at you live, we have Ashley Nichole, myself, and Bella Krystal of Unlock Your Design, and we have the lovely Pallas, and she's the CEO of Authority Establishment. So today we're actually going to have the unique opportunity to get inside the design of Pallas. So the reason that we're doing this series, and you'll see us come on weekly with all the members, well, the core members of Authority Establishment, we're doing this to illuminate the genius, the design behind each of these individuals and how they come together collectively to create Authority Establishment and what makes them authority and an authority in their own right. So we're going to be using the human design and gene key systems. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll kind of take you into that. And there's a lot of feedback I'm hearing. Is it just on my end or?
I don't hear the feedback.
Oh, then it's just me. Weird. So we'll give you a little bit of context with gene keys and human design before we just dive into it. But it is a blueprint of your energy and of basically your soul. We can look into the architecture of your soul, where you've been, your childhood, your genius, and your unique gifts that you use to manifest prosperity and establish your authority in the world. So this is a wonderful and beautiful way to really see yourself in its totality in front of you. So we're going to be giving Pallas her own reading, her own live reading, and we'll be going into both of these systems, these charts, so that you can get to know Pallas on an intimate level, and it's pretty transparent what's there. And me and Bella will be the ones that are translating and decoding it for you, because it'll look like a foreign language when you see it. But we'll do our best to show you Pallas in these different parts of her design. Okay. Pallas, did you have any questions before we get started?
No, not yet. I don't think so. We've kind of touched in about this a few different ways previously. So let's just do it. I'm super excited to learn about me and see where this goes.
Awesome. Okay. I'm just pulling up your chart right now so I can share it on the screen. Belle, is there anything that you wanted to add while I'm just pulling this up? I'm looking for it. Here we go.
No, I feel like we're going to give a little bit, since it's the first time, a little bit of background as well. And then, and also let people know that you and I, we have probably learned about our own design for more than 5 years now, and there's still things to uncover. So today is going to be a snapshot of your role and your soul. That is not the whole picture, but we're going to do our best to illuminate the parts that stand out.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so we're obviously going and looking at the design of Pallas. And how do you say your last name, Pallas?
Dame.
Just Dame. Okay. Mm-hmm. I didn't know. Dame, Dame. I don't know. Dame. Pallas Dame. She's a dame. This Pallas is a dame.
I also thought it was Dame. I thought it was something like I said it in a very exotic way.
We say it our own way in our heads. Okay, so what you're looking at right now is on the left-hand side, we have Pallas's human design chart. This is going to be showing you how her energy works, how it flows. Anything that's white is where she's receptive, and what that means is other people can plug into her and she can read that energy. Anything that's defined or colored in is part of her. She has consistent energy too. So this is part of her defined personality, her defined energy that runs through her system all the time. She's fairly open. She has a ton of open centers, which means these are the centers that she uses to connect into people, and she'll pull in the energy and read it, right? So, I mean, a lot of people are familiar with being an empath, right? So if you can really look and see, okay, what does it mean to be an empath? I would say, let's go into the solar plexus center, which is the house of emotions. Pallas doesn't have consistent energy going here. She's not emoting emotions. She's receiving them and reacting or responding based on what is coming into this kind of like bowl of soup that she's tasting and saying, okay, I like this, I don't like this. So you could basically say her emotions are not her own. And the only way that these emotions can be expressed through Pallas's filter is through what we call gates. And these gates are the things that are colored in the channels. You can see they're either red or black. Red is part of her unconscious personality. this is defined 88 days before birth. It's underneath the surface. You might not really recognize it in yourself. And then the black stuff is defined personality. So if I say, if I look at something, and let's just look at, 44, this gate is teamwork, synergy. This one is all about being able to smell the gifts and talents in other people and say, okay, you're great at this, you go do this. Like, she's going to be able to take people and be like, you're going to fit this spot, this spot, this spot, this spot. And Pallas, would you say that that's kind of a skill that you have, being able to identify the gifts and talents in other people and place them where they need to go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my former life as a corporate person was doing just that in corporate recruiting for people around the world. So
perfect.
Yeah.
See, there's an example. Pallas, are you psychic?
Yes.
Okay, you have a defined gate. The 57 is a psychic gate. So consistent energy to be psychic and be able to intuit stuff, to empower yourself, and to intuit what you need to do and who you are, to empower yourself. Let's see. We talked about the open centers. It's basically like a plug, right? So you're the socket in the open centers, and people can plug into you and transmit the energy in there. And you're like, okay, I'm reading this, I'm reading that. So the defined centers are where you end up plugging into other people. So they start to read that aspect of you. Bella, is there anything else you would add about the body graph of the human design chart? Are you there? Are you muted? I think you're muted. I'm going to unmute you.
No, I feel like there's something more that you want to say first. I feel like I'm coming in a little while.
Because I started to find myself in La La Land. I'm like, I need direction again.
Okay. Well, I can absolutely speak about, what I say. This is, we speak about type. You didn't speak about type, or a type, right? So you spoke about the openness. So here we have something particular. You are a generator, a pure generator, and this is an aura that 70% of human beings have, and so it's something that is that's very particular for you. You see a red center in the middle, almost in the middle down. That's like a motor, and you are here to use your most precious gift is your energy, and you're here to use your energy right. So you're here to actually be like a motor or an engine. There's a lot of energy that goes out in many directions. The important thing is that every time energy goes out, it's like paying a coin for something. So you want to get value back. If you just put your coins everywhere, but there's no reciprocity, that is going to be a problem for you. And we say that the not self of this generator aura is frustration. So basically, if you go out in a day and you put your coins and you pay a lot of things, you do a lot of things, but then at the end of the day, you feel drained and you feel frustrated. You know that the way that you use your energy that day was not conducive, was not constructive. And that's what every day when you go to bed, you want to be tired, but you don't want to be drained. You want to be tired and satisfied. The number one thing for being a generator, which is 70% of the population, is to use your energy right. Your precious energy, your treasure box of coins. You want to use them the right way. And how it's so easy for you to see. If you're frustrated at the end of the day, very probable that you use your coins in ways that weren't constructive. So that's the first thing. And the other thing of being a generator is that you have a particular theme in the sense that you are a generator, but you only have 3 centers that are colored in. You have 6 centers that are white and 3 centers that are colored in. That for a generator is, I don't see that so often. That's particular. And that also means that we want you to really be in the open centers. Sorry, in the colored centers. What Ashley was saying is that when you have open centers, energy comes from the world and goes into you. And you're flooded by that energy. And you have to decide, is this mine? Is this not mine? Like, what do I do with this? This is pressure. This is like pressure from the outside. And this is other people's emotions. And these are other people's thoughts. And these are people wanting to speak in a certain way. Like for you, all these things are constantly flooding you. And that's a process of wisdom to discern, okay, what are my thoughts? What are my certainties? What's the way I want to speak for my truth? When is enough enough? How do I deal with other people's emotions? How do I deal with other people pressuring me? These are the 5 themes, basically, that I was summarizing into one of your openness. We want you to come back to the colored centers. And for you, you're this being with a lot of energy that you want to use right, number 1. Number 2, you're very splenic. You see that you have a brown center on the left of your chart. That is the splenic center. It's about instinct, about intuition, about being psychic too can be. It's really about your senses. You are informed all the time by your senses. You smell, you can smell if things are right. You can touch things and be like, this is not completely right. I can see why you work with integrative medicine, because you have that, you can see when something is not firing right. And your instinct, your intuition is so important. That's what informs you, because that's completely connected to your energy. So your energy, using your energy right, comes with a lot of the instinct and the intuition that is in you. And the third thing is that this is connected through who you are and what your direction is, and how you know that you don't have to seek love outside of yourself, through 2 things. You want to be able to behave naturally. Whatever environment you're in, whatever relationship you're in, whatever happens, you want to be in a place where you can behave, where you can be natural as who you are. If you are in an environment or in a job or in a group where you cannot be natural, that is going to be draining your energy. That's going to create frustrations in you. That is going to make you not being able to listen to your intuition. So you're going to be like, well, this is weird. I have so much intuition. But actually, if you're in a place, in a group, in a setting where you can't act naturally as who you are, that's going to be thrown off. And that's really serious. And the other thing is so important is the 46 that is also in the yellow diamond. And that is the love of being here in physical form, also connected to the senses. And it says you have to be in an environment where your body feels delight, where your body feels like you are the person who would love going to, eating mangoes in the sun and being naked, like that kind of feeling. And that has to be part of your life. That sensual, physical delight of being here in physical form. And these 2 things are super, super, super important for you. So these are the 3 things: your instinct, your intuition, your naturalness and embodiment, and using your energy right. That could be that could be a first reading for you, and that will be enough for you to know, because that's what's going to make you not go away. Oh, what do they want me to say? What do they want me to think? What do I have to live up to? Oh, everybody's emotions. Oh God, I'm so stressed. Like these, when you come back to the colored centers, all these things dissolve and fall away.
Any questions on what Bella said so far before I kind of go into new terrain?
No, it all resonates. It's just right in line with me. I in my former life, as a young person, I was always really challenged with kind of wanting people to like me and like trying to show up the way I was supposed to show up and whatever. But in my adult life, I have shed almost all of that, almost to a fault, where I'm like, I don't care at all. I'm just going to show up as me. That's a good thing. But then there's also kind of a little bit of nuances to how that shows up in the world, right? To navigate other people properly and not come off as something I'm not trying to come off as.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're very open, like Bella said. You only have 3 centers that are defined. So you had to sort through other people's stuff and say, what's mine, what's not. And so this gate 10, which is all about the love of the self and empowering the self and the behavior of the self, right? We have 10.5 and 10.3. These are the expressions of the self. So we can see, we call all the 5th lines heretics, and we call the 3rd lines martyrs. They're not very lovely words to hear, right? And a heretic has different ideas. They're here to be kind of mysterious and alluring, and people are going to make their assumptions about who you are. Now, there is a little bit of guilt that can be associated with being in that expression of who you are, because there's a projection field that people are looking at you, but you're kind of not all the way in the light. So they're saying, I think Pallas is like this. And so they're going to be projecting their expectations on you. And as a kid, it's going to be hard because you want them to love you. You want them to accept you. So because you're so open, you're going to read them and say, they want me to be like this. I'm going to be like this. So you've been doing you've been being who you should be and who they expect you to be, because you were really good at reading that. And because maybe the 3rd line is the martyr, right? I'm going to experiment with who I am. I'm going to find all these different iterations of like what's acceptable, what's not, because I want to tread that line. Because first of all, I don't want to feel their emotions. I don't want to make them angry. I don't want them to project anything on me. And I want them to love me. Like, just accept me for who I am. So you're going to be looking at your worthiness in terms of, is it okay to show up as who I am? So it's going to take that time for you to come into the ease of being yourself, not feel guilty for being yourself, and not feel the shame for being yourself. So showing up as your authentic self is going to take that time of pushing through other people's expectations and projections of you, and really being comfortable and confident in who you are and in your body. And that's where your transformation lies. And this is Pluto. These are all planets. So when you were born, it's like the planets have created the blueprint of you. So where the planets lied in the sky, it was like, boom, stamp, this is Pallas. And Pallas is going to express her source energy through this blueprint. It's like the Play-Doh machine that you like have all those filters on, and you stick the Play-Doh in, it like squirts out. So you have your own filter that source expresses itself through. And sometimes you're like, I need to be like this filter. So you'll like plug up one because it's just too much for somebody else to handle, and you won't be fully expressed. And so a fully expressed Pallas is that person that can be completely in her body, that can be who she's supposed to be. And that can kind of, like we were saying, I mean, smell it. I mean, you're a very splenic being, and smelling out the talents in others, using your intuition, using that depth of knowledge and wisdom. And this is not just things you learn from a book. This is like your well of wisdom of knowing inside of you. People are going to look at you and be like, you know something. I know you know something. And I want to talk to you because there's something in you that you have for me. You have a key for me. You have a nugget for me. There's something you have. And it's alluring to people, and they're going to come to you like that. And then if you can align yourself with the correct belief of like what's success, what's failure, you can be very successful in life, because the 32 is about successes and failure. It's also about what you're carrying on. So it's like things that were passed down from generations. It's like, I'm going to carry on this tradition or that. Like, what is the thing that you're trying to preserve in life? And if you stand for, above all else, the integrity of the body and the health and the emotion, everything, like the integrity of things, that's what you're going to weigh everything against, and that's what you're going to carry forward. And your success and failure is just dependent on, did I help others get to that point of integrity? Am I in integrity? Then the same thing with 28. This is a seeking for purpose. This is also a risk taker. This is somebody that is going to go and has fears of, maybe before you figured out what you wanted to do, that whole searching for purpose. There's like a deep undercurrent of, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? It may not have been something that was really apparent for you, since it is unconscious, but it's something that your soul was pushing. That's why you were looking in places you were looking for to get into the things that you got into, because you were searching for the thing that felt right in your filter, in your body, in your soul, like something that just like, ooh, that clicks, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's some of the stuff that I would say. Yeah.
I would like to hear a little bit about your childhood, about your parents, like just kind of paint the picture a little bit about where you came from and what you learned as a child and an adolescent.
Yeah, I mean, that's really complicated overall. I mean, there's a lot of different sides to that. Like my mother, she was on Broadway, and she had the leading roles. She was Aldonza and Man of La Mancha. Back in the day, she was there with just Joel Grey and Bernadette Peters. Like, those guys were her peers at the time. And she was probably a theatrical hippie versus anything else, and just very open to the world. Like, I grew up with my mom. We'd go chase rainbows and try to find a sunbeam and drink the sunshine. She's like, if I could just drink sunshine, I'd never have to have food again. Like, that kind of stuff. So, I just, with my mom, like, she left theater because I was her first, and she wanted her kid to be able to run barefoot through the fields. Like, there's a newspaper article of her talking about that when she left theater. She met my dad in theater when she was doing an off-Broadway tour in Pennsylvania. And that's at a place called, was it the Music Center? That was one of the places that he and his father owned. And so where we crossed over with my dad is where there's a lot of really different things that went on in my life and kind of where I come from. My dad is, or was Jewish. So I'm half Ashkenazi Jew. I didn't grow up Jewish, but that lineage is there. I never knew my family through my father, though. That's a whole other side of stuff. Like just really, really complicated kind of with my dad. He and his dad, they had the #1 hotel, motel, nightclub right outside of Philly back in the day. And the only way that you could have something like that is if the mafia was involved on some level, because they run everything. And it was the #1 place to go. And so there's all sorts of crazy stories that, according to my dad, weren't ever true. But I am confident that that is not the case. And so, as I've done a lot more of body talk and deep work in consciousness and such, I've learned a lot more about that side of things, that lineage that I come from. And it's really interesting, not so awesome in a lot of ways. I mean, there's always beautiful, but if there's things that have come up in my life, like unpacking the stuff that I've gotten really sick from, if there's going to be a historical direction, it's going to go through that side of things. And so there's a lot of crazy nuances on that side of things through those kind of connections, through my family lineage, back through Europe and the Holocaust and all of that kind of stuff. And so a lot of that comes up with him. On my mom's side, I have, I'm Cherokee. I'm on the Native American rolls. So very, very spiritual, open, out in the world with my mom, animals, nature, fairies, all that kind of stuff. My dad's side, very, very different energy. And so, interesting stuff. But I'd say overall, my growing up, it was like, in some ways, I was that kid who had, the perfect pony and lived on this New England plantation farm and unicorns and rainbows and stuff. But then on the flip side, dad's energy would come in and you can kind of blow that other scene up. So kind of like this in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of beauty, but then a lot of stuff, just a lot of stuff. My dad was married 2 times before. So I have siblings from 2 of his previous marriages. And with my mom, when my dad was still here, they stayed together for a whole life. And out of that marriage, I'm the oldest. Then I had my sister, who's just shy 3 years younger than me, and my brother, who's 8 years younger. And I was always, it's funny, you kept saying the martyr, that's part of human design. I've always been the martyr. I've been the one to blaze trails. I've been the one to just blow shit up and do what I want to do, trying to, form myself. But then there's also been a lot of complicated nuances with my sister and kind of the middle child kind of thing. But then also me, a very big brazen personality, is kind of where I was intentionally going in my life, coming from a more, I'm kind of scared to get out in the world because what if people don't like me kind of place. I went from there to there. My sister's very much middle child in the way she navigated things. And then my brother, 8 years younger. 8 years younger is 8 years younger. When I was 16, he was 8. So we don't have a whole lot of connections, being kids, other than he was I love my brother. But, he was that annoying little kid that would embarrass me when we go to the mall and I'd have my boyfriend with me or whatever. It's stop dancing around as I'm walking, trying to be cool, that kind of stuff. So, it's been, it's my journey from childhood to where I'm at I could talk about that for the next year with all the intricacies, and not a normal life. not a lot of, I don't fall into the realm of normal when I start speaking about it. People are are you sure there's not a book about that? I'm like, yeah, that's my life.
I mean, I'm wondering, what was your dad's motivation for being like in that? Was it money? Like, what was his hunger? Like, why would he be in that if it was like half corruption and half truth?
That is the question that all of us have wanted to understand. My dad was very, very money motivated, very money driven. As I understand things, I never met his father, my grandfather. He wasn't a very good man, but there's like a whole lot of nuances that come from when you look at, the Judaism. And like, when I've done some research, because I literally don't know about my family on my dad's side, when I've done lineage research on ancestry, I am 4th generation Russian here, because I can go back and trace when my family, like on the, what do they call it, on the boats, on the manifest, like when they came here, and that time and place. And it was when there was a big exodus from Europe. It was right before and during World War II, kind of that time frame. And so when you look at the Jewish side of things, like my last name, my maiden name is Reichman. Reichman is not the original derivation. It's Richman is where it comes from the Judaic lineage. And so at some point, my family on his side changed it from Richmond to Reichman, because from what I understand from that Jewish sect, the name was it delineated kind of where you were in the caste system, like how successful you would be in life. And so I don't know where Richmond fell specifically, but I do know that when you switch it to Reich, now it's more German. Now they're in the States. Now they have a new chance of life. Like when they came to the States, a big thing that happened with the immigrants from Europe, especially the Jewish people, is that their identities were erased. They were not allowed to bring their identities with them any longer. And so when they came from Europe to the States, all of that history was basically, if you're going to be here, that never happened, right? And so name changes, religion changes, how you show up in the world changes, like all that kind of stuff. And so when it comes to my dad, and I start kind of looking back, like historically, how that might have impacted somebody, like outside of the weird mafia kind of stuff, like that's fighting for your identity and fighting to show up in the world at a bigger level than where you came from, right? Like whatever that means. Being integrated with organized crime back east, like that's a whole nother thing. Like I know my oldest sister, my oldest sister, she's significantly older. She never paid taxes in her life. Like her mother, this is where people are like, is this a movie? Her mother, Lisa was the Dom, I think he was New York, the Dom's mistress. So he had like his wife, and then second in line was her. And so for the entire time the Dom was alive, he took care of her and her entire family. Not me, on her mom's side, right? So like she never paid taxes in her entire life. And after he passed away, she always had a job, bartending or wherever it was she went, never had to pay taxes, was always like, there, like the Godfather, like that's my sister's life. So there's like a lot of crazy stuff in my lineage on my dad's side that could put him and his father to where they were at for whatever reasons that was, right? So see, there's the movie.
So one question, your mom and your dad, how were their relationship? What would you say about them together?
Not good. I mean, in retrospect, my mom, they had a lot of challenges, a lot of fighting, not physical, but it was very, very verbal, very dysfunctional. And then later in life, my mom admitted, like she fell in love with my dad, but also he was like this big character, like stars in her eyes kind of things. But she also saw he was broken, and she thought she could fix him. right? And so that's not how you would ever want to go into, into a relationship that way. And so, my mom was always like this starry-eyed person, the way I was, describing her, and she went into that marriage in the same capacity, right? And so it was never good. It was always, there was a lot of contention, like through when he passed away a few years ago. It was complicated.
Wow.
So what were the ways that you were allowed, like what did your parents idolize? And maybe it was completely different things. How did they want you to be, and how did they not allow you to be? Like what was that imprinting, or didn't they care at all?
Gosh, well, my dad he was a huge sports fan. And so I was always a tomboy. And being 8 years older than my brother, I was the one who like ended up getting immersed in sports and soccer, and he coached my teams, and I played on boys teams. And, he took me when he was coaching my brother's teams, like I got to go and help with that. So I mean, it's weird, like with my dad, like because of my demeanor or like the stuff that I would get involved in, we had a decent relationship on those fronts. I don't know that I ever actually knew how he wanted me to be. There was, I can't tell you how that, what his.
There wasn't something he didn't accept. Like he would be like, "Don't be too feminine," or "Don't be like." Was there something that wasn't allowed from him?
No. Let me think. For my dad, me being mouthy, but other than that, like, no, not that I can think of right now.
Would you get in trouble by him? Like, would he ever like?
Yeah.
So what was that?
If anybody would get in trouble in my family between myself and my brother and sister, it would be me. And like, I grew up getting spanked, and I grew up like my dad would rage. He would get super, super, super angry. And then I remember if I saw him starting to get angry at my sister, then I would start like acting up and freaking out to like deter his attention, so that then whatever that thing was going to be about me. And so that went on for, a long time, like our whole life. Like there was some physical stuff that ended up happening other than spanking, in my teen years and such. So it was dysfunctional. Yeah. It was dysfunctional
And from your mom, what did she expect from you?
My mom, she always tried to have the dynamics where there wasn't like expectations per se, like said expectations, like I could dress the way that I wanted. And like I had that freedom of expression. However, I mean, this is where we come into like where somebody could be in therapy for a long time. Like my mom always had the best of intentions, but like in life, if like the way my sister and my mom's dynamics were, they could stay in that happy bubble of like unicorns and rainbows, and I'd be like the realist that would come along and go, "Pop, didn't you guys hear me? Didn't you see the real thing that just happened?" Like, and so because I'm like that person going, "Hey, let's check in. This is what's really going on. Like, let's not like," so that's been like an underlying issue, almost like a defect for me in ways, right? Just of how the dynamics have been. Like my mom, she loves me fiercely. Like she loves me. But I've always in my life worked more on fitting out than fitting in. And my mom has always been because of her own insecurities, even though she's like in theater, like more fitting in. Like in theater, she could express herself fully, but that was under character. In real life, not so much, right? Me, on the other hand, once I started establishing my own like identity or knowing that's what I wanted to do, that's when a lot more stuff started kind of falling apart in a lot of ways. It wasn't that she didn't want me to be myself, but myself is not how she shows up in life. So, that creates contention. That creates a lot of misunderstandings. Like, there's so many big arguments and big misunderstandings. It would almost be like, because of how hard I would push to be heard, because my being heard was like my reality, but it wasn't the unicorns and rainbows reality. They didn't necessarily want to hear my reality. And so I've spent still to this day, don't you freaking hear me? Am I speaking Mandarin in an English speaking household kind of thing? Right. And so that's been a big part of stuff. It's been complicated in that way. My mom is very, very spiritually based. She's a deeply spiritual person. Like, she would thrive in the communities that we're building. But when it comes to her own identity, it's for her, it's to show up in the world as her. It's scary. So she always did a lot of makeup, always really pretty, like always put together, like even when nobody sees her, first thing, mascara, everything. Like, there's not a day that she looks crappy, like, ever. Right? So it's very much in that way, like control.
Thank you. I have so many things I want to pull up from this. I just want to hear first, what about school and like when you were like 15 to 21, like starting relationships, like what about these years? What were your like feelings, or like how was your state? What was alive for you from starting school and then up to even high school and college?
Do you mean about relationships, or what was my integration?
Yeah, first of all, did you like school? Did you have like friends? Like, was school an environment, and with teachers, like, was that an environment that you liked?
No. I mean, I had friends. I always had friends, but I have never enjoyed, like, school stressed me out. Like, I was stressed out from the time I was little to, like, I hate school. I love learning. I love learning, but I hate school. I don't, memorization has always been nearly impossible for me. Yeah. Following other people's systems and guidelines has always been really difficult for me. And in school, I guess that's probably the biggest constraint of showing up as who I am not. I mean, of who other people think I should be, but in like in the linear way of thinking of who I am not, like, that was super uncomfortable for me. But I always had friends, but then at the same time, I was also, do they like me? Do they not like me? Like, I didn't deal with the nuances of like the stupid social nuances well at all. I got hurt a lot. So many, girls get vicious, and that stuff I didn't navigate well at all. Like, most years before school would start, like the night before, I would have such bad stomach aches. And this is where my dad was really sweet. He would sit for hours and hours with his hand on my stomach, trying to help my stomach ache go away. Like, I just did not want to leave the house. I was so that was like stress to go. So, like, traditional learning, traditional academia. Yeah. Nothing traditional. I don't enjoy traditional because it doesn't flow with me. Like, even before I knew how non-traditional I am, like, it was just super uncomfortable. It's like a square peg in a round hole. It was like, take my oxygen and then put me in that environment.
So did you go to high school and then you stopped, or what happened like after 15? How did you continue, like, working or studying?
I went to college. I went to several different colleges, and I really enjoyed the college experience, like versus like the academic side of it. So, college, that was really great. But I went to college because I wanted the experience, but the academic side of it bored me to death. Like, I want to learn about what I want to learn about. And I didn't want to have to let's do more English. Let's do more history. Let's do more of this other stuff with these tenured professors that really need to have been fired like 15 years ago. Like, it's like, I'm paying all this money for stuff that I have no passion about. And so I guess back in school, I think this is where there was a big miss, is that I never actually got to connect with passion in school. I got to connect with what everybody else said I had to connect with. And so after I broke out of that paradigm and realized that I didn't have to have this high pedigreed college education to have passion and education and learning and immersion and really, really amazing stuff by my own design, by my own thinking, my own patterns, like that's when I really grew.
I mean, just by looking at your nodes, you can see this pattern. You have the same nodes on both sides, and the south node is about intellect. So like you know about what it is to live from the intellect. You know what it is to kind of live in the academia. It's like your soul and your personality have been tired so long in that. And what you are here, your north node, and now you are, I think you are, how old are you? Like, yeah, I mean, you are getting more and more access to the north node, and that's inspiration. So you go from intellect-based to inspiration-based, and that's both sides, the black side and the red side in your chart. That is super, like, that's kind of the big, the trajectory of your life. The North Star is the inspiration, and with inspiration, of course, passion can come. So that's so in tune with what you're saying, and makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a lot of things to say about the childhood and these things, Ashley, but I feel like what do you take with you with this, like when you know the background, what do you feel is
Lots, but I don't want our listeners or Pallas to kind of get confused either. So I wanted to pull up the other chart and kind of give the background there. And then as they're following along in the chart, they know why we're looking where we're looking at.
That's perfect.
So, okay. So I'm going to explain this, and then I'm just going to riff off of whatever Bella brings forth, because I took a bunch of notes. But I know she has tons to share, and a lot of why you are the way you are makes sense, and the strengths that you have, everything is perfect. I mean, it's all designed. And so this is the gene key chart. So we looked into how your energy works. This is kind of the blueprint of kind of uncovering your aligned self. So it's like, this is your soul. So we have anything that's in green. This is your genius. These are your gifts that you bring and share with the world. It makes up 70% of your personality. The way that we get these is it's your conscious sun and your conscious and unconscious sun, and conscious and unconscious earth. When I say conscious, it means the moment you were born, unconscious 88 days before birth. This builds your body, this builds your personality. And so we have these things in the soul. This is the things that are contributed from your soul. These are the things that are contributed from your personality, your mind, your Pallas, right? But then there's things that are deep within you that are like contributed from your soul. So we have these 4 gifts that we bring to the world. And then when we can uncover and start working with these gifts and bringing in the high expression of these gifts, you'll see that there's different frequency bands for each of these. So there's 3. And the first is the shadow, the second is the gift, and the third is the city. And the city is like a highest divine expression. So if we look into 33.6, right, we have forgetting as the shadow, mindfulness as the gift, and revelation as the city. And I mean, we'll go into that at some point. I just wanted you to know like the frequency bands. So each of these have a different expression, and you want to be in the gift expression of your genius. You want to be in preservation, not failure. You don't want to be worrying about I'm a victim of success or failure. You don't want to be in any victim patterns. The shadows will bring out the victim patterns in you. And then as you move into the Venus sequence, we are we're basically opening our hearts through our relationships. This is actually where your journey begins. The vocation sphere is also your core, which is what was imprinted on you in utero, in the womb. And then when you were born, the first 7-year cycle of your life is your SQ. This is all about how you're navigating being in a body and also being detached from source. Like you're coming in here trying to figure out, what do I love and how do I navigate this vessel that I'm in? I'm going to figure this out. And then we have the EQ, which is all about your emotions. And so this is age 7, 8 to 14. And this is your theme of what you are navigating in the emotional realm. We're trying to achieve competency in all these areas so that we can fully incarnate. It takes Richard Rudd is the founder of Gene Keys. He says it takes 21 years to fully incarnate. So we're working on our physical vessel body here. We're working on our emotional here and our mental here. The majority of the population don't ever mature emotionally. So we have all these adults in adult bodies that are actually children because they haven't come into emotional competency. So you are learning through your parents' aura how to process emotions, how to express them, repress them, whatever it is. Then we move into the IQ, which is all about your mental realm. And these are the beliefs that are formed. This is what's happening in school, age 14 to 21. And so we're making our way back here as an adult. So we're unlocking our gifts. We're like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I bring to the table. I don't need to compare or compete. This is who I uniquely am. Then you move into this realm because you're almost picking up the pieces of the parts of you that you left in childhood because of the trauma or rejection or whatever it was that was going on. You like didn't feel it was safe to integrate all of these, so you didn't bring it with you. And so now we're moving back to integrate these things. So your attraction sphere are like the theme of your relationships. Like it's what you're attracting into your life. So you'll experience these things in your relationship. So it's really important for you to have a purpose in each of your relationships, for you to be like, okay, what's the purpose here? Because that's what's going to keep the relationship together and not have you be like, okay, adios, let's like get out of here. So the more you understand the purpose of your relationships, the more at ease you'll be in your relationships and you won't want to escape or whatever it is. Then we move back into the IQ. And we look at our patterning here. And once you get to the SQ, this is kind of where you have the final flowering of your heart. You can open your heart and you'll begin to give your gifts to the world without the expectation of receiving. The problem a lot of people face is that they're operating from their wounding. They're going out in life and saying, here are my gifts and here's what I'm going to give to you. So now what are you going to give back to me? Because I have this hole right here, you see, and I'm going to give you this if you stick something in here. Because I feel incomplete. I feel like I need something here. So the more that we can come into our totality, our wholeness, the fact that we're healed and beautiful and unique, that we'll start giving from our overflow. And when you have an open heart, that's where it's coming. So we're here to find our core stability, open our hearts through our relationship, and then start giving altruistically. This is the pearl sequence. And most people in life are like, I want what's in here because this is what gives me prosperity. I want to be a successful business owner. So let me just hang out in the pearl sequence. You're not really going to have access to the higher expressions of these if you're in your wounding. If you haven't gone through your childhood, picked up those pieces, integrated them, and then given altruistically with an open heart. You have that core stability. You have that open heart. You're not feeling like anyone's going to attack you or belittle you or cut down your worth. You're just like, I know who I am and I'm in my wholeness. And then moving into the pearl, this is all about just your role in the world, the things that you're contributing to society to make it a better place. But to make it a better place, you have to be in a better place. So that's kind of the trajectory of the Gene Key journey. And Bella's going to spend probably quite a bit of time in here because the way that we can see the exalted expression of Pallas and illuminate Pallas is when all of Pallas is integrated. I'm not saying that you're not. I mean, I am saying that you're not, because all of us are still bringing in pieces. Like nobody's perfect. We still have more pieces of ourselves to bring in. And the more you do that, the more you get that exalted expression showing up here, the more you're unlocking your true role in the world. But you have to have piece of being here. You have to be in your purpose to unlock this role. Here's your soul. Here's your role. You got to connect to your soul before you can express your role in the world. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Bella, unleash the beast.
Yeah. I actually don't want to. Sometimes I start in the imprint of the DNA, but here I feel like I want to go back to the body graph, and I'm just this is this emotional part that I see, and having an open emotional center, you get flooded by other people's emotion. You can feel what other people feel, like it's there, and some of the low frequency emotions are turbulence, dishonor, weakness, conflict, reaction, victimization, desire. And I feel like you could feel all that in your family. You could feel all the things that are going on and kind of the bull energy that you are saying. And also you have a completely open ego center with nothing in it. And this has to do with value. Am I like, what is my value? Am I good enough? And maybe promising, but then not living up to it. And then that is really hard. So it's a lot about that worthiness, and not even like maybe even having your reference point for what is worthiness. And then you're trying to prove that you're good enough. And maybe some of the things are beneficial for you. You become a good soccer player, but there's also these things where you feel like you might feel you're never enough, or they never understand you. So there's something with that one that really goes into what we call the sphere of your emotional intelligence. And this planet, this is the immature masculine. This planet is Mars. What I see for you in that one is that Well, there are several things. It's a line too that has to do with reciprocity and mirroring. And the age that we really develop the emotional intelligence is between 8 years and 14 years. And what I see that in school, for example, you didn't have complete reciprocity and mirroring. Like you didn't understand exactly what was going on in the dynamics with your friends. With your mom, you didn't have complete reciprocity and mirroring because she only wanted to see the unicorns. So when you brought up the realism and you're actually grounded in the sphere of realism, if you look at the very bottom of your chart, the gift is realism. So when you come with realism, what you're grounded into your mom, she only wanted to see unicorns. So there was not a true seeing each other there. And what that made you feel was, it's a kind of inadequacy there. They aggress you you could say in a way, because you don't get to be you don't get to be you in the full expression of your emotions. And when you have an open emotional center, it can be hard to even know what your true expression is. So often, like Ashley said, that's the part that you don't develop fully, because one, you feel everybody else's emotions, you actually want things to not be in conflict. And you don't believe and trust in true mirroring. Instead, you feel aggression, especially what you were saying too. I feel a lot with your dad here. I mean, you get in trouble, you get rage, you get spanked. So why would you believe in true mirroring? So for me, this is one of the biggest things. And it's also tied to Uranus in your chart. It's tied to your creativity. So for you, emotional intelligence is going to unleash your creativity. And that's very important. So what I see a little bit of the theme when I go back to the mother wound and the core wound, I see your mom who is here to remember being that spiritual feminine, but she only did it, she gave other people the hope on stage that she was that, but in her whole life, she actually wasn't that. So when you look at the 33, she could do it as like kind of the feminine role model on stage, but it wasn't a true revelation. She didn't reveal her own truth to herself. She didn't become a role model in her own life. So that's part of the core, forgetting that you are a feminine role model, for like not having that revelation of what it is to be a feminine role model. So that's what your soul, what Ashley said, this is where the very chart starts. You are here to be a role model, a feminine storyteller. But it's not so easy because that 33 is in your throat. And your throat is open, so it's constantly flooded by other people. What do you want this? What do they think you should say? How do they think you should express your genius? Is it through soccer, or is it through being smart, or is it through So there's this constant thing that makes it harder, where you feel like you don't really fit in, not even in your own family. And there is this feeling of inadequacy and not fitting in that is there on a deep level. And then there is something so if you go to the SQ, this 0 to 7, the imprint from your father, there's a kind of hunger, like a hunger for money, and like a kind of quest to not fall down into that depression, whether depression is money or depression is, emotional turmoil. But he's even changing his name, his identity, everything to not fall into that. And there is a hunger that doesn't come out in a way that is really healthy. And what the beauty in your chart is that for you, he had the past generations have their identity erased. And you got an amazing gift in this life. The yellow center is the identity center, and it tells you the only thing you need to do to be in your true identity is to be natural and to be in your body. Gate 10 and gate 46, and they are colored in, so there is no flooding by anything. Like if you are just yourself and you're just in your body, but you were in your own family, you couldn't be that. So that's where we are reclaiming these parts. And that little girl she was all about being a true community where there's truth, true sharing from the heart, where we can share this part. She didn't get that. So she's afraid that doesn't exist. And there's a tendency in her to become a little bit controlling, a little bit tribal when that happens. When she doesn't feel that heartfelt community, she goes into that energy of kind of the ruler, which is the 45. She's like, I need to rule here. I don't trust. And that's a little bit dangerous, because you also have a Chiron that is just 21, and it's also about control. So she is afraid that she's going to live maybe again what she lived, or that more sides of like that shady side that you didn't know about on the dad side. So there is something in her where she doesn't feel completely safe. And that is also where, and then not mirroring, I would say that sometimes you go into that conviction, that fixedness that is there in the fourth line of the IQ, and that decides to be certain about something. But it's a confusing place because she doesn't have full access to all her emotional intelligence and richness more than intelligence. And she doesn't really have that child that is just an open heart and is just knowing that, okay, everybody wants the best of everybody, and we're a community, we're a tribe, and we're not bulls. Like she needs to reclaim that. She wants to feel that. And there is something, because we don't have that much time, there is something for you that is important, because that would lead to a lot of reaction, and again, maybe, some mirroring that doesn't fire right. There is something with the fixedness that tells you, if you are afraid of failure, nothing is going to fire right. You want to reclaim your richness. You don't want to feel inadequate. It's not about like, you're not going to fail. You're never going to fail when you're you. Instead, you are actually a risk taker, and you have started to step into that, because with your mom, you're like, I don't care. I have the reality here. And even if it's dark, there's a Scorpio energy here. Even if it's risky, I'm going to say, don't you listen to me? And I'm confused why we don't see the same reality. So you're stepping into that. And by continuing to step into that, what I see in how you're relating is going to function. This is your Mercury energy, is when you are yourself, behaving as yourself in your power. The people that are not supposed to be in your life are going to fall out, and the fractal of the souls that are here to co-create with you, they are going to come in. And then it's when your gratefulness of life can come in, because your Mercury is that soul fractal that wants to come in, and that wants to be wants to help you to reclaim your creativity too, because you're going to be adequate around the people that you are. And that's when that true power of your naturalness comes in. And that's also, instead of being afraid of failing or not being good enough, you can really be in your heart and say, I'm going to water this project in my life. I'm going to cut off this product of my life. I'm going to tweak this product. You know where to put your energy. And that makes us come back to the very first thing. You know where you put your coins. And that's where you're getting out of expectation, getting out of not being mirrored, getting out of confusion of having different realities, getting out of some of the distractions, and you're coming back to the very mother wound. You're standing up as a female spokesperson for revealing, your truth, revealing the remembering of why we're here, and not playing a role on stage, but being the example of that in your own life, in your own community, in the outer world of manifestation, because that's when the core wound of what your mom wasn't able to do flips, and your stage become your reality.
Wow. That's all makes so much sense. I don't even have to try for it to that's yeah.
Yeah, it's here. It's we see you, Pallas. And I would go into I want to go into why Pallas makes a good member of authority establishment. I want to bring it back to authority establishment, because that's why we're here and that's what's being built. I feel that your SQ, like Bella said, that if there's wounding there, you're gonna I'm the ruler and I'm gonna control this, because maybe living out of the not self is my worth is at stake. You're not seeing my value, you're not seeing my worth. But the thing about Pallas, the thing about you is that you are about family. You are about coming together. We wouldn't have spent all that time talking about your family heritage if that didn't matter. It matters. It's a part of the story. And you want to have a community. Anybody who has a fourth line right here, this is all about the wound of rejection. But the people who have this are here to bring community together, and they will fight for their people. They will be here for them, fight tooth and nail, but you got to be around the right people. And the thing that you want the most is communion, synergy, everyone to come together as one. There's something that needs, if you didn't see the uniting of your parents, right? They weren't completely in synergy. One was dominating the other, and one was airy fairy or whatever it was. So I think that the you've been looking for that community your whole life. Like, where do I fit in? Who am I with? And so you're calling in your fractal line, like Bella was saying. The only centers that you need is when Pallas is by herself, when she's alone, the only things that you need to not worry about, but be in is in your body and be yourself. And you have the energy to do the things that you want. And you have the intuition, the know-how, the like your fractal line is activated. You know that you can be successful in anything that you put your mind to because you have this wisdom, these resources, and you know your purpose. With nobody around, when nobody's in your aura, you're like, I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. I know what my mission is. I know this and that. It's as soon as somebody comes into the aura that you begin to speak for the collective too, and feel into the other people. And then it can get kind of confusing because the whole point is like what your heart wants to do is merge with everybody, but everyone needs to be on the same, they need to be on the same level, right? And you're not here to know anything or to be certain of anything. Your mind doesn't even work that way. The way that your mind works is it's very receptive. It's just going to take in what it needs. And you don't even know, like, some fact that you learned 5 years ago, it just comes out of your mouth when it's needed. And you're like, I don't know where that came from, but I must have digested it somewhere. But you can't be like, okay, Pallas, we're going to give you a test. And no, that's not how you work. You're here to, like, it comes out sporadically in the moment too. And because you have an open throat with a crap ton of definition, you're here to be the voice of the people. You have all this definition, but you're not going to be that voice unless you're responding to something, unless you're invited to do that. You're not here to just be like, let me get up on a stage and like say something. You have to be saying something in response to something else. The centers that are defined are your strengths. The channels that you have are your strengths. You're here to be yourself and do things, like make things happen, right? We have this channel right here. This is the only, I know who I am, and I know what to do. I know who I am, and I know what to do. The 57 says, I know who I am, I know what I need to empower myself, and I know what to do. When you bring in all these other people, it's like you're not here to control or dominate or whatever. They get to do what they need to do. You're just here to be you in your full expression. You're not here to manage the other people. You're here to move in your own true expression. And when you're called forth, you can channel and speak for the collective. It's like when you come together as a whole, you make a unit together, and then you're channeling for them. Like, here, let me bring in this information. But on your own, you're not here to just like, here, let me write this copy. And here, that's not what it's about.
Yeah. That would perpetuate the South Node. You're not even here. You're not the organizational being, actually. So when you try to do that, your kind of comes up from an open, inconsistent throat. You need to be in your more animalistic self first, and then things fire right. So it's important for you to actually not focus on the details, to not focus on the intellect, to not focus on the organization. You're here to have the inspiration. That's your North Node, your North Star, of the bigger view, and function from your instincts. So, and otherwise that throws with all these ton of activations can fire wrong, and you have your mom and your dad in there. You have your divine feminine, your divine masculine, but they are coming out in like kind of a hunger for something, or like a stress for something, or it will come out, like Ashley was saying, in some kind of there's no synergy, and then it goes into confusion. So you're not an organizational being in a traditional sense at all.
But she is a container creator. You're here to bring people together. And I mean, your heart wants this. Everybody, let's sit around the table. We're all equal, and let's like unite together and break bread together. And then you create this container. The 56 and the 60 are it's your soul gifts. There's a lot of magic in the 60. It's here to be the realist, but it's also here to be like drunk on life and drunk on spirit. So it's like, you're taking in the mom, right? Because she could be drunk on spirit all day, but you're also being the realist, and merging those two together, you're able to manifest whatever. So this is a really powerful cross. It's like, when I know what my mission is, I'm going to attract all the right people that align with this purpose, that align with this vision and mission. And when I'm not afraid of losing all my money and dying, I can create these really awesome, magical containers for us to thrive and alchemize in by just simply being me. I don't really need to do anything else. I'm here to remember all the time who I am, and know that I am like so successful. Like I have everything I need that I'm bringing through me from my past lives too. Like Bella was saying, you know the facts, you've learned the facts, and now it's here to act on inspiration. That's all. You're here to be that. And there's something super like humorous and lighthearted about this 56 too. You're here to like lighten things up as well. You have the 46 as your transformation. It's not supposed to be serious. It's supposed to be lighthearted and bring in the delight. So that's the role that you make, and you're here that are like weaving everybody together. Like, let's all get together. You shouldn't have to worry about being the ruler or leading or dominating. It's like you have as long as you come into the authority of your heart, everyone will listen. It's not like I'm going to tell you what to do and you what to, it's like, listen to my heart. My heart wants the best for us. I want to unite. I want to rise together. There is no hierarchy. There's just hierarchy. This is how it is. That's what your heart wants.
Mm-hmm. And then the vocation, again, the way that this community building is, I see it as rings. It's like around the fire, you're sitting in the ring, and it's like you're sitting with others and you're a storyteller. And maybe your organization is made up of different circles and you sit in the circles, but that's your place. You're not here to really organize the circles. Like you come in, and that thing that your mom didn't get to step into, you become that role model in the circles. But it really comes from you demonstrating it, not you organizing it. So like it's really that aspect of your revelation comes from you being you, telling the stories. And I must say, I have people telling us stories every day about their childhood, but like with yours, I could see like a movie in front of me. And I really liked that movie because you have that storytelling talent. And I was like, wow, I would like to make a movie of your life. It's really exciting. And I've lived in Philly too. So like, it's so alive for me.
Can you imagine with Pallas's openness, her being able to take in the other, being able to come in like, okay, here's the things that inspire you. Here's how you conceptualize. Let me speak it in your own language. Let me tell you about your worthiness and your impact and your emotions. And like, let me alleviate your stress. I'm going to tell you like why you're stressing, how you're stressing. And here, let me tell you your story. Because the thing about having like an authority and a brand is like, you need a brand story. You need a visual and you need that brand story. You're here to be able to tell that story and articulate it for the other and for yourself. I mean, if you tap into all this openness, you're going to be able to pull in and pull through the story that they're meant to tell and share with the world, because that's what people are needing to connect to. That's what makes a brand is like, can you emotionally connect to that brand and their brand story and why they're here? So that's why make a book, Pallas, because people want to know your story. And that's kind of what you're going to be telling people, like, hey, your story is important. There is a power in story.
Mm-hmm.
So
much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's very much how body talk works as we go through the whole process. It's what story is the innate intelligence, is consciousness going to tell us, like, and it's a dialogue that I'm able to bring to the surface to tell the story, help tell the story of the situation, of the experience, of the whatever. So in that practice and in the bigger world, like for authority establishment, that's what it's about. That's what I want to happen. Oh my goodness. Okay, you're really excited about me for a second. That's amazing.
You are an exciting person.
You are activating DNA. You're changing the world because you're actually your mom. The way like that was written in your DNA. The like that activation. It would be so easy for you to bypass your own revelation and to be this thing. Like maybe you go into the role of the company, but you are here to be a role model, and that doesn't stop when you come home. Like you are changing the DNA. You are evolving the lineage by stepping into your authority in this way. And that's kind of the message of your life's work, is what I feel like. And it doesn't come from fear of not fitting in or fear of failure. No, it comes from an open heart that can breathe really who you are and express that.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to establish the authority of the self.
Yes.
Illuminate that.
That's amazing.
And that's why you're like, I know this is what we need. This is what everyone needs, because you innately, I mean, your gate, your channel here is like, I know that it's important to establish the authority of the self. That's all that matters. I mean, you had that a couple times. Mm-hmm. So, that was good. Do you have any questions for us or anything that you want as we wrap up, and maybe we can kind of close off screen too?
Mm-hmm. Not at the moment. I will have questions later. I'm a processor. That's a lot.
This is the thing. This shows that you're like that we can. When we look at design, we can't fool you, and like you are receptive. It's going to come in, and it's not like direct, and you have open head and open, everything's open. So that's why it needs to come in now, and it works. It's like you receive it, but it's not like, it's good that you're not like jumping to speak from an open throat. Like right now, you're taking it in and you're discerning in your being, and then you're going to be able to be wise about it. And that's the thing also, when you're not in stress, in school, you couldn't be wise because there was too much stress. You were inadequate. But when you let it sink in, you can come back with your wisdom. And then the other is going to listen, and you establish that mirroring because you're allowing yourself to work as you work. So that was a perfect example. Somebody actually really stepping into the design and living it.
Good. I can't fake if I try. Like nowadays, sometimes I try to I can't fake. I try, but I don't try hard enough. It takes too much.
Why would you try? That goes against your design.
Exactly.
Yeah. And for all the rest of the team that's watching too, one of the biggest things that I would say is like, don't pressure Pallas. Like, give her time and space too. Like, you have an open head and an open ajna. Anytime there's anxiety or stress, like, you're not going to function correctly if you have pressure from both sides. So it's like, let's everybody detach, chill for a second, and then we'll reconvene later, because you'll have those revelations and you'll have like, okay, here's what I'm sharing about this.
Yes, so important. This is going to be part of the team dynamics, but already we can see clearly some of the themes that are going to be so good when people know about you, because then the dynamics can work in so much more ease than in enforcing anything.
Yep.
That's true. Yay. Somebody that can translate me to the world.
Well, thank you for being transparent and letting us dive into you and illuminate the design of you in the scheme of the world, and hopefully we can weave in authority establishment and the team dynamics at play there, like Bella was saying. So again, thank you so much for allowing us to dive in and illuminate you.
For sure. Thank you for the opportunity. This is so amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, everybody who watched and tuned in, and anyone that's watching the replay. We appreciate you. And if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat or just say hello. We'd love to get to know you and build community, because that's why we're here. And I'm sure that Pallas would love that as well. Her heart yearns for that. So let's build a community together. Bye, everybody.